I've also learned from you that advocacy lobbying has changed. We have become rather famous, at least in Canada recently, for a new prime minister who said this is 2015. But I can recall you saying to me at one point, Al, advocacy, lobbying, relationships with government have changed. They're changing dramatically, and they're different than the assumptions we've held to for so long. Many of them may no longer be true, or they've morphed and evolved. And so I've always characterized that as that 21st century lobbying has some distinctions or differences from the past century or millennia. Do you have a comment on that or a thought on what has changed and what has remained the same?
Well, I guess the first way of thinking about that, and I won't go along this line for another couple minutes, but the first thing that I would say is that what strikes me is how many things haven't changed about what makes for effective advocacy, and I'll get to that in a minute. But among those things that have changed, two or three. One, we live in an unprecedented age of transparency and accountability standards. When I started in this business in the late 60s, early 70s, when the earth was still cooling, it was a very closed shop. People didn't really understand much about the nature of government decision making, and even less about the attempts from outside government to influence that. And for a variety of reasons, that has changed. The unrelenting and more invasive scrutiny of the media is one reason. Secondly, partly related to media exposure, is the existence now in virtually every jurisdiction in Canada of lobbyist disclosure laws, in which those who are being paid to influence the decisions of government must register and declare that on an open public registry. There is also a big difference in and what that's translated into is a big difference into the dynamics of advocacy. There once was a huge advantage to those who could quietly take out a political assistant to a minister or a deputy minister and have a nice, quiet, boozy lunch in Ottawa in which you sort of set out what it is you're trying to do. That era is largely vanquished now, certainly for the corporate sector, as it should be, because there is now new standards about the nature of personal relationships and the degree of intimacy, so to speak, that can exist between those in government and those outside. Some of the other changes that I think are obvious to anyone is just the increasing complexity of issues. Not because the issues themselves have become more complex, but because there is an ever greater range of interests that are now in a position to present their ideas to government, online, in person, through the media. Part of this is a function of the 24/7 news cycle that both has given more access to more voices on more issues, but also it has remarkably sped up, for better or worse, the nature and the timing of government decision making. When you have, back in the day when I was a young reporter, there was one deadline a day for newspapers, maybe two if you had morning and evening papers, and there were 2 or 3 deadlines for broadcast news because there were only a couple newscasts a day. Well, we're now in an age of 24/7 news, and as a result, the pressure on governments when things start happening is that much more intense and time sensitive. So it often presses government into making decisions that have policy implications in a way that was never the case before. So a lot of these changes, both in process and substance, there has been in the last 15 years or so, a marked decrease in the number of people that serve policy functions in the Government of Canada. Some governments have essentially done away with their policy shops, but they're thinner resourced now than ever, and that presents both challenges and some real opportunities for people who are trying to advocate from the outside.